Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Oh, don't you love it when it comes right back to bite 'em in the behind? Well, I'll tell you, I'm a sucker for it. You know, the nonchalant talking point approach that leftists have to some of these issues. How it all just seems to be a game for them, while it always ends up coming back. Something they said, a flashback moment. The infamous backfire moment. We are living through it right now. Not so long ago, the media was laughing, not understanding how immigration is an issue for people who don't live in border states. How could voters in Virginia mark immigration as a top concern? They laughed about it, failed to address it as per usual, and now it's coming back to haunt them. The left-wing negligence of the southern border is finally getting them in trouble. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright, so you know me. I always keep the receipts and I never forget. Who remembers when Jen Psaki said this?
If you look at some of these exit polls, I live in Virginia. Immigration was the number one issue.
Yes.
Again, these could change in Virginia.
Well, Virginia does have a border with West Virginia. Very, very contested area.
Build a wall. What?
Looking into the camera with big eyes, laughing, ha ha ha. How ridiculous it is that someone in Virginia would have concerns about the nation's sovereignty at large. What a ridiculous notion. But of course, you know that was a front, the typical Wojak wearing a mask, laughing on the outside but crying on the inside. I think the Democrats took this as a big warning sign, and then of course the month that followed, well, that's where the Democrats plotted their official rebuke, their stance that actually the southern border chaos is all Donald Trump's fault because he's spiked the bill. Another crackpot Democrat tactic that they were hoping was going to turn the tides. What a pathetic attempt. After years of negligence, years of doing nothing, simply opening the border to anyone, after literally laughing about it on TV, they thought a last-second bill in an election season after 3 years of doing nothing would instantly shift the narrative and put the blame on Trump. It might have worked for half a second for maybe 1 or 2% of the voting public. Then, of course, reality kicks in, and reality, well, it doesn't tend to be good friends with Democrats. Here's the bite back, the backfire.
And this is one of the trend lines that I think really tells the story that's the difference between this election and the 2020 election. So if you ask voters, who do you think would do a better job handling border security and immigration, what do we see? We see that back in 2020, it was basically a dead even split, right? Joe Biden was slightly favored on it, but not overwhelmingly. And of course, he slightly won the election, not overwhelmingly so. Look at where we are today. In a Marquette University Law School poll that was put out last month, look at that advantage that Joe Biden has that Donald Trump has on immigration and border security. It's near 30 points. This is a tremendous change that's going on.
A huge 30-point shift on the issue in Donald Trump's favor, and rightfully so. This is what happens when you laugh about it. This is what happens when you air your condescending ugliness to the public. People don't forget they saw the nonchalant, insulting attitude, and the response is resounding. People care about the border. They care about border security, having a secure nation. They care about Laken Riley. They care about the fentanyl ravaging through their communities. It's crazy to me that people don't seem to understand or grasp the concept that over 100,000 people are dying every single year to drug overdoses, mostly fentanyl overdoses and fentanyl poisoning. That matters. That's an important issue. That's something that people probably want government to be doing something about. But when this is your approach...
if you look at some of these exit polls, I live in Virginia. Immigration was the number one issue.
Yes.
Again, these could change in Virginia.
Well, Virginia does have a border with West Virginia. Very, very contested area.
Build a wall. What?
Well, it sends a very clear message to people that are paying attention, and where do you think it sends them? Straight into the Trump camp. This is something that's happening. It's something that's been happening, and as per usual, it seems as though the Democrats are lagging behind. They're late to the party, late to realize, late to understand. But I guess that's what happens when you're a pompous, out-of-touch, elitist liberal who doesn't actually care. Well, the people do care, and they care more than they've ever cared before.
Let's talk about voters and immigration. Where does that stand in terms of importance?
It's number one, basically, and the trend line has been absolutely tremendous. I've watched it over the last 6 months. If you go back to the end of summer last year, less than 10% of Americans said that the top problem in this country, the nation's top problem, was immigration. And we've seen that rise steadily to now, where last month it was 28% of Americans. And if you go back and Gallup polling over the last 40 years, at no point did more Americans say that immigration was the top issue than are at this particular point. And it makes sense, given the border crossings being at an all-time high by the end of last year, that Americans seem to be responding in a way that they simply put never have before.
And CNN has been reporting for months, immigration is topping voter concerns. Abortion isn't even on the list. Democrats' supposed Trump card in the election. And it's funny because immigration was supposed to be a bad issue for Trump. You know, the Democrats had him pinned as a racist, clipping his quotes out of context when he's speaking about gang members, MS-13 members, or the individual who took Laken Riley's life, cutting out that context and claiming that Donald Trump hates immigrants. Yada, yada, yada. He said this and that and the other about immigrants, completely fabricating fake news. That kind of thing was aimed at destroying Donald Trump's image, especially on the issue of immigration, but it's clearly not working anymore. Actually, CNN's polling analyst mentioned that earlier as well.
That Donald Trump has on immigration and border security. It's near 30 points. This is a tremendous change that's going on, and it's no wonder that Donald Trump is running on immigration. And he's not just running on it in a Republican primary, he's running on in the general election. And I also think that's why there hasn't been quite the backlash that you might expect over Trump's comments, some of which that I, of course, wouldn't make. And it's because that voters at this particular point are quite concerned about immigration, and they trust Donald Trump on this particular issue.
And also, I have to say, I mean, the public is so ahead of these disinformation campaigns these days. I mean, the hoaxes are getting exposed on air so quickly these days.
But when he says these immigrants are animals, they're not humans, what does that suggest? I mean, isn't that brutal? Shouldn't people be condemning that?
I listened to the entire tape. He was specifically talking about the person who murdered Laken Riley in Georgia. And to be honest with you, Wolf, if somebody murders another human being, I think they deserve to be called animals. And I don't think any American is really going to reject that kind of rhetoric. That poor girl was murdered in cold blood. Is that person who did it not an animal? I think that's an apt term.
So you think he was only referring to those murderers, not referring in general to illegal immigrants who are coming into the United States?
I listened to the tape. That's exactly what he was talking about, in my opinion.
The whole Trump hates immigrants, Trump's a racist thing clearly gotten a little bit old. Nobody's buying it. Even the voters that Democrats have been courting, as top Democrat strategist James Carville even admits.
You know, I've been very vocal about this. It's horrifying. Our numbers among younger voters, particularly younger blacks, younger Latinos, or whatever, but whatever younger people of color, particularly males. We're not shedding them. They're leaving in the droves.
Young black and Latino men are leaving the Democrats, quote, in droves. And so I guess it's safe to say there's been a little bit of a Democrat oversight here. Like I said, that's what happens when you're a NIMBY Democrat. It's all coming back to bite them in the behind. And again, rightfully so. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys on this one. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.